Ridley Scott is an interesting director, to say the least. He has one of the most versatile filmographies, and he's been at it for like over 4 decades now, making everything from groundbreaking science fiction to introspective road trip comedies. He's dabbled in the period piece before, so it wasn't surprising to hear that he was working on a Napoleon biopic, especially considering he's already made a film featuring the historical figure in 1977. But it's sort of been curious to see whether or not he would pull this one off, because he's kind of been hit or miss in his later years. I recently watched House of Gucci and it was not great, but The Last Duel was pretty good, so it seems like it could go either way with this guy. In the case of Napoleon, I think it's somewhat in the middle. There's a lot of great aspects about this film, but it also comes together in such a way that leaves a bit to be desired. As you would expect, Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby are perfect as Napoleon and Josephine. They have a very dynamic on-screen chemistry. The set pieces are grand and completely convincing. The battle sequences are phenomenal and on their own were enough to warrant my IMAX ticket. For me, the cinematography was especially relieving. I was concerned because of the shoddy work on House of Gucci that felt bland in comparison. I think Wolski is a perfectly capable DP, but it just wasn't working last time. But with Napoleon, the muted and cold color palette really complement the film, and the scope of the battles are covered so masterfully. You can tell there was a lot of care put into the visuals, whether that be the costumes, makeup, or special effects. The action is dirty and occasionally really violent. Interestingly, this film was subtly marketed as a love story, prominently featuring Vanessa Kirby in some of the promotional material, even taglining one of the posters with "The World" for Josephine. So going into it, I had some expectations that we'd be focusing on that relationship. And yeah, it definitely took up a significant portion of the film, but I couldn't help but feel like this romance was incomplete. That's not to say it wasn't entertaining, but I wanted to see more of what made these two characters so alluring to each other. It feels like a substantial amount was cut, and after finding out that there's a 3.5-hour version of the film set to release on Apple TV, it made a lot more sense to me. But I think it's well paced despite its shortcomings, so a little added runtime is not something that I mind. And once we get to see a longer cut, my opinion might change on this one. Overall, the film gives us a taste of many great ideas, but it never fully commits. I love that Ridley satirizes Napoleon and introduces a tinge of humor. At times it's tonally serious, and other times it becomes a comedy. I would have loved to see it lean more into a satirical identity, similar to The Favorite, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, another film that takes an iconic historical figure and turns the story on its head, not shying away from idiosyncrasies. That's not to say that Napoleon had to produce laughs every 5 minutes, but I think the satire is what really worked for me, and something that could have solidified it as a more memorable film, had it narrowed its focus. It's not like Ridley is a stranger to that approach either. Just look at Thelma and Louise, a great black comedy that strikes a balance between the harsh subject matter and the humor. I think Napoleon also loses sight of the intended character study that it sets itself up to be. Considering the film's title, you would hope to see some sort of deep dive into this character, but the script doesn't flesh him out enough to really allow someone like Joaquin to have as much fun with the role. We get through the bullet points of the big events, from his rise to becoming the emperor and the big battles that probably take a fair amount of creative liberty, but there wasn't enough for me to connect with apart from his notorious historic ethos that we're kind of already accustomed to. Now, I'm not well versed in European history, or any history for that matter. My knowledge is at a high school level at best, so I'm definitely not an authority on this topic. Ridley has been very vocal about his lack of consideration for historical accuracy, rebuking the pedantic critiques of how on the nose or not this film really is, and I feel like this was a missed opportunity to really go all out in a more absurd direction. I'm sure the fact that Ridley admits to not knowing or caring if they actually fired cannons at the pyramids science is bound to rustle some feathers, so why not take it a step further? I personally don't care all that much for historical accuracy, so long as the film isn't insisting on realism. I mean, not a single person speaks French in this movie, so why hold back on doing something a little more daring? I'm not saying this film needed to be some sort of obscure art house epic, but in the end it ultimately felt kinda typical, even though it teased at possibly being something more. And I say all this to say that I enjoyed the film. I think it's worth seeing on the big screen, and there's a handful of things here to really appreciate. Again, the battle sequences are truly amazing. The score is effective and not overbearing. There's some great performances and some genuinely funny moments. I'm not gonna judge this one too harshly right now because I intend to watch the longer cut if and when it becomes available. Hopefully it fills in some of the gaps. My guess is because this is the theatrical cut, you want to salvage all the action, which means cutting out some of the more dialogue heavy stuff. So we'll see. Is this movie going to be in a lot of people's top 5 this year? Probably not. If you've watched this one, let me know how you're feeling about it in the comments. So far it's had a somewhat mixed reception, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think. And since you made it to the end of the video, you might as well leave a like, and you might as well subscribe. But yeah, thanks for watching.